What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Minhunter Comics. And a couple years ago, I was talking with my uncle who collected comics in the 80s. And he said that it was the consensus that back then everybody knew that the real value was in the Silver Age. A couple of years later, I have heard that several times. Now, when he collected in the 80s, I'm pretty sure a lot of that copper and late Bronze Age stuff just didn't seem that collectible because it was so new. But now, 40 years later, when bronze keys have gotten hot, pretty much everything has had its fluctuations. People still say the investment value is in the Silver Age. So I wanted to make a special video talking about that today and why I think it is the case that Silver Age comics is consistently the best thing to collect, but also to invest in. So you'll have to forgive my pun, but this is my 12 cents for why I think that is. For starters, the Silver Age isn't the oldest age of comic books there is. So why isn't the phrase, the money's in the Golden Age? Why is people always saying it's in the Silver Age? And I think that one of the biggest draws to the Silver Age is because that was from an era that redefined superheroes. Because remember, superheroes got big in the late 30s, 40s. That's when we first got our superheroes, but they were far from what we know of them today. They had a lot of modernizing and upgrading in certain things that we now take for granted. In the 60s, there was a big movement to make characters that were not only relatable, but more iconic to a more modern for the time setting. So with the 60s, you had the creation of some of the best comic book characters of all time, rivaling, honestly, that of Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman of the 30s and 40s. You had Spider-Man, Hulk, Daredevil, Hal Jordan, you had Aquaman, The Flash. As you know, it's an endless list. These superheroes, quite frankly, are still to date the biggest names out there. There have been characters created in bronze, copper, modern, foil, new eras that are all fantastic, but it can't quite capture the iconicness of those particular characters. Particularly in 1962, as I've talked about that specific year on this channel, that's when that big boom happened. So I think with the Silver Age, right off the bat, you're just dealing with the best of the best characters that ever were created. Certainly some of the most iconic. I think as long as there will be superheroes in our society, in our culture, the Silver Age will be there to represent it. Because that's the age which popularized superheroes in America and around the world. But one thing that seems to be applicable to the Silver Age, other than to copper and bronze, is that it seems to be more immune to market fluctuations. When books across the board go down as a whole, all books go down. We've been seeing prices drop on a lot of things, and the Silver Age is not completely immune to that. There are certainly keys that go down. However, it's not as much of a sharp drop as a lot of the moderns and other age books. Now, something I've thought about for a while is that copper, modern, new books are all boosted up and fluctuate based on a lot of character speculation about movies and shows, who's going to be in what in the next year, and did you catch wind that this so-and-so villain's going to be arriving? So it's true that I think post-Silver Age, a lot of these books are driven by that, for movie purposes and for reasons like that, whereas the Silver Age, sure, you can have characters that are influenced by stuff that's going to hit the big screen, but the difference to me is that Silver Age books are driven not so much by speculation, but more by prestige. That's right, these are such iconic characters that even if they're not going to be in any movies, they're the ones you want to collect. I think it's a societal and cultural thing. We have deemed those covers and those stories as iconic. This is not to say that stories have not gotten much better in the art of storytelling, because frankly, a lot of the stuff from the 70s up, to me personally, seems better written than some of the stuff that was going on in the Silver Age. So it's not necessarily that. It's the prestige of owning these Silver Age books. Now, what's interesting is all collection markets have target audiences, that when that generation of folks expires, the interest for those things goes away. Look at the amount of highly rare stamp collectibles and even baseball cards that are kind of going out the window because everyone that wanted to collect that stuff has done it, and now that generation is fading away, and so that collecting market is starting to fade away. Hummel plates, The list goes on. You know what I'm talking about. And even the case for the Golden Age, which preceded the Silver Age, there's many books that are just, they're not getting the attention that they deserve, particularly because that generation that was collecting 40s and 50s books is quite on their way out, and the interest is more surrounding the more modernized 1962 and 63, 61 characters. One thing that's pretty interesting is Superman specifically, his keys and his books are on the low. They are sinking even his Silver Age keys, and one of the reasons I think is he's not a Silver Age character. He was a Golden Age character that's had over 80 years of success. But I think that says something about the characters from the actual 60s. Their books seem to be pretty bulletproof. Batman's a little different, obviously, because he was always a flawed hero from the beginning. Frankly, it just makes for a more interesting character, more akin to characters created, frankly, in the 60s. There are obviously major staples in the Golden Age, like your first massive appearances of Batman, Superman, things of that nature, any Batman villain, for instance, and all that pre-code horror stuff is very desirable in that particular instance because those books were before the comic collector's authority, and thus it's a cool part of history to see those books get the prices they deserve. But Silver Age books, and keys specifically, don't get affected by that much. And let me tell you something. The generation that those Silver Age keys were made for are starting to become old-timers. But unlike with other hobbies in generational collecting, Silver Age comic books stand tall. I know for me personally, I love collecting 90s books because it's what I grew up with as a kid, and that's what we call generational collecting. Kids from the 80s love to collect 80s books. Kids from the 90s collect 90s. Kids from the 2000s collect 2000s, and so on and so forth. Introduce a little movie speculation in the midst, and people dip into each different decade and different era trying to get pieces, and that's how they build their collections. The Silver Age defies this concept of generational collecting because the books are so iconic and so prestigious and so desirable in so many different ways that 90s kids, 2000s kids, 80s kids, 70s kids all want those books. What I'm getting at is the Silver Age is the real meat and potatoes. There are, of course, other factors, like a lot of those writers and artists are unfortunately no longer with us. And whenever you have deaths of creators, writers, any part of the creative team, that can drive those books up. But again, just like the movie speculation, that is not the main factor quite at all for these books. Rather, just the books can stand on their own. One of the most important factors we do have to mention is obviously there's considerably less of them. Most people that had these books threw them away, or their mom threw them away when they went off to college. So of course there's less of them, so of course you're going to get supply and demand. The supply is low, demand will be high. But unlike Golden Age books, where the supply is often even lower than these Silver Age books, the demand is usually even higher. And I think so much of that can be attributed to that time, to that particular time in American history and entertainment industry where amazing characters were being cranked out all the time, different types of storytelling was told, and you could actually relate to these heroes for the first time ever. So really, I suppose it's a culmination of many things. It's from the era that redefined and popularized superheroes. There's way less of them. The creative teams behind them are admired and idolized even, and all those factors, and I'm sure many more that I'm not even mentioning, come together to defy the laws of generational collecting. And that's why I think that will continue for quite so many decades to come. Bronze keys are on the rise, and I think that that is one that is going to be getting far more respect in the future as well. And I do think books like the Copper Age and Modern Age in later years are going to grow. In 50, 60, 70 years' time, is that market going to kind of run itself out because the generational collectors that all wanted those eras are starting to fade away? I don't really think that's going to happen, but I can say almost for certain that the Silver Age will still be there strong as ever. Anyway, guys, just something I've been thinking about for a little while. Thought I'd make a video. If you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. Stay tuned for videos every week, and as always, keep on hunting.